Welcome back. My name is Tyler McClure, and we are glad that you joined us for part 2 of my discussion about self-care with Ms. Trina Stanford. Last week, we discussed what self-care is, the importance of self-care, the 5 key areas of self-care, and some self-care suggestions in those 5 key areas. To pick up where we left off last week, let's welcome back Ms. Trina Stanford.
Thank you, Tyler.
Well, we're excited to have you back. We're going to hop right into it. Ms. Trina, last week you gave some suggestions about self-care activities that we can do, but why is self-care so difficult in practice, or is it just as difficult in theory?
Thank you for that great question. It's difficult in practice because I think for most of us, we have a mental list of the shoulds that we get used to. Mm-hmm. I should be eating more vegetables and fruits. I should be exercising. I should read my Bible. Okay.
Amen.
The problem with should statements is that we have not committed and have not accepted personal responsibility for our own well-being. Mm-hmm. So when you ask why is self-care so difficult in practice, it's because we haven't held ourselves accountable and we haven't made that a priority in our lives. As I shared last week with the statistics on just many things on where we fall as far as just Americans, it's obvious that self-care is not a priority. And my hope is that during this pandemic, that it actually becomes more of a priority. Sure. And that's why I want to help encourage and provide suggestions and recommendations to make self-care part of a daily practice for everyone.
Wonderful. What do you think are some of the most common misconceptions about self-care?
So some of the common misconceptions about self-care is the number one misconception is self-care is selfish. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself and love yourself. I would not characterize that activity as selfish. Self-care does not mean, oh, I have to make a choice between you or me. As we practice self-care more, it helps us find out what our non-negotiables are, and it becomes easier to say no to people and circumstances. Right. For instance, alone time is very important to me. It's very important that I start my day with prayer, reading my Bible, because it helps me set my tone for how the rest of my day is going to be. Mm-hmm. I can always sense when I'm in a hurry and I haven't allowed time for that alone time and that stillness for me in the morning. My day is not on point. Right. So it becomes very important for people to understand what are your non-negotiables? What is something that you know that you absolutely need to do? Another misconception is that self-care, you have to have a lot of money in order to do self-care. And all you need for self-care is you and whatever it is that nurtures your mind, body, and spirit, such as reading a book or going to the movies or just chilling, just doing nothing. You get to choose what it is that you want to do. Absolutely. Another misconception is that self-care is the same for everyone. And just as you are unique in what makes you different and special, just as I am unique in what makes me different and special, self-care is not a one-size-fits-all. It's unique to that person who's determining what it is that they need to nurture their mind, body, and spirit. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Another misconception is self-care is a sign of weakness. We all, we've heard that we should be able to handle all things, right?
Right.
Wrong. We're human beings. We're not robots. And so we need, as human beings, we need those things that are going to, again, nurture our physical, emotional, mental, social, and spiritual self.
I think you said that it's unique per person, but how exactly do we practice self-care? How do we begin to even get into the habit of practicing self-care?
So you brought up just that, it's habit, because practicing self-care is a way of acknowledging personal responsibility for your own well-being. It's about being accountable. So the key steps to begin this are awareness, intention, and action. So think of it as a continual feedback loop. First, the awareness is raised, then the intention, you address the intention, then you act on it. So once you start this circular motion of doing it, then it becomes what you say a habit. So let's take, for example, the physical component of self-care. You say, how can I better care for myself physically right now? So what that is, that's an awareness that you need to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
The intent is, I need to exercise. So that's your intention, knowing I need to do something about taking care of myself better physically. So the action would be, I'm going to ride my bike 20 minutes a day. I'm going to run 30 minutes a day. I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day. So what happens is that you start doing this continuous process loop where it starts turning into a habit. And what happens when you start working on one aspect of self-care, it becomes a domino effect. One thing leads to another because you start feeling good about what it is that you're doing. Think of it as self-care as a continuous process on the journey to being your best self.
It's wonderful. It leads me to ask, are there any resources you can provide for our congregants who would like additional self-care information?
So after this session, there will be on the website a list of resources that I've created for our viewers who can utilize. But some of the resources on there are bestlifeonline.com, which is self-care tips for those of us who are in quarantine. Also, there's the CDC. The CDC website has wonderful resources and information on coping with self-care. There's the website mylifenurse.com, and it talks about how to use faith in strengthening your self-care. And not to leave you millennials out, there are best self-care apps. So on marieclaire.com, there are a lot of really good best self-care apps. For instance, if you're a nature lover, you can listen to birds chirping, trees blowing, oceans, the crashing waves of ocean, those things, whatever it is that soothes your spirit. And also topcounselingschools.org is another wonderful website that has a lot of different self-care help apps that will help you for being able to do those self-care things that, like I said, nurture your mind, body, and spirit.
That's great information. Lastly, what would you say to someone who feels like they are too busy to take care of themselves?
So what I would say to someone who say they're too busy, first of all, that's another misconception. I don't have the time, I'm too busy. I would say caring for your body, mind, and spirit is your greatest and grandest responsibility. As I had suggested last week when we talked about how we are masterpieces that have been created, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. It becomes important for you to make the time to utilize self-care that's going to nurture your spirit. Also, I would say if time is slim, the idea is to take advantage of those blocks of time that you can interject some self-care time. So those hours, those couple of hours that you're spending on Facebook, seeing what your friends are eating, or on Snapchat, seeing what your favorite celebrity is wearing, take that same time that you have carved for that's not feeding your spirit or your mind, and use it on things that will feed your spirit and your mind. Basically, I would say that taking care of yourself is saying yes to you. I always like when I'm talking to you, to our viewers, is giving a call to action. My daughters always tell me that I'm very bossy, so I might as well keep it going, right? So my call to action to everyone is to do at least one relaxing thing for the next 2 weeks. Whether it's taking a walk, running, dancing, singing, cooking a new dish, writing down 3 things that you're grateful for, practicing random acts of kindness. Do an activity every day for 2 weeks, and I guarantee you that you will start noticing a difference and start making that a part of your self-care routine. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this quote. An empty lantern provides no light. Self-care is the fuel that allows your light to shine brightly. Thank you, Tyler, so much for this opportunity to speak to you today.
You were marvelous. First off, thank you for your helpful tips, and we appreciate your suggestions and expertise on how to put self-care into action. As you all have watched today, we have been advised to self-quarantine, social distance, and wear face masks in order to reduce the impact of this COVID-19 in our communities. But these precautionary measures have been created, they've created fear and anxiety among us, which is why now more than ever, as she has given us the resources to practice self-care. So we ask that you join us in that. But also, Ms. Trina, thank you for helping us learn how to put self-care into action. You taught us how to become aware of it and being intentional and adamant about moving forward and just saying yes to ourselves. You told us that in that quote that you cannot be a light to anybody if you yourself aren't fueling yourself with self-care as that fuel. And it's important that we understand that you can't take care of anybody if you're not taking care of yourself. Jesus himself used to retreat early on in the morning to make sure that he was good before going out. So we love the correlation between self-care and physical and emotion and mental, spirit and social life. And so we would like to direct our viewers afterwards to the self-care resources that Ms. Stanford provided for us and made available, which will show up at the slide at the end of our session. So thank you for joining in today, and God bless you. Thank you, Ms. Trina.
Thank you,
Thank
Tyler.
you.